Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Zero Hour. Joining us now is Benjamin W. Veghte. Hope I got that right, Ben. PhD. He is Research Director for Social Security Works and the author of a new report on the virtues of strengthening Social Security. Ben, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Richard.
How'd I do on the last name?
It's Veghte, actually.
Veghte, okay, like vector. I'll never forget again. And your new report addresses the implications for rising inequality of Social Security policy. Basically, what did you find? It was an excellent report. I read it, but tell me in your words briefly what you found.
Sure. Well, I took a big picture view of rising social inequality and its relationship to Social Security policy. And you're looking back historically, my training is originally as an historian, so I took an historical view. And if you recall, in mid-century we had an implicit social contract in America for shared prosperity and shared growth. And Social Security was a cornerstone of that. The New Deal was a cornerstone of that. It laid the foundation for that social contract, along with strong collective bargaining rights, investment in infrastructure and education and housing, for example, for the GIs returning from the war. And that built a society with shared prosperity. And in that society, Social Security's finances worked very well, both in addressing retirement security issues and also in terms of maintaining the solvency of the Social Security system. But since the mid-1970s, we've had tremendous increase in inequality. All 100% of income growth since 1979 has gone to the top 10% of the income hierarchy. So when you have a social insurance system like Social Security that's funded by payroll taxes up to a tax cap, and the tax cap this year is $118,000, $118,500 per year. If all the income growth is happening above that tax cap, then obviously the system doesn't work as it was designed to work. In fact, the country doesn't work as it was designed to work when all the income and wealth goes to the top of the income hierarchy. So that's created problems for Social Security. It's also created a retirement income crisis. And the argument that I make is that we need to reform Social Security to come to terms with those developments and adapt the revenue stream, what's called the contribution and benefit base of Social Security, to this new economy by scrapping the cap so that millionaires and billionaires pay Social Security contributions on all their income, just as average workers do, and also incorporating investment income of high earners into Social Security, so that if you, for example, run a hedge fund, you pay income, you pay Social Security contributions not just on what was the cut as income, but also on investment income, so that everyone in the economy is contributing to Social Security on both their earned and unearned income at the same rate. If we did that, Social Security would be solvent.
Let me unpack a couple things here, because this is a lot of information for folks to absorb. So, one, we're talking with Benjamin Veghte, the Research Director at Social Security Works. So, number one, the system is a little short on funding. Nothing like the crisis has been made to be, because so much of the income in an increasingly unequal economy is going to the very wealthy above the Social Security payroll cap. So that's number one. Number two, that inequality, and you tell me when I'm done where I'm wrong, but number two, with that growing inequality goes more retirement insecurity. So people actually need more protection in their senior years. So number three, the best way to fix both problems is to hit some of these people at the highest end of with more of their share, more of their fair share of the cost of this program, especially on those forms of taxation that, well, to put it simplistically, you don't work to earn, investment income. Is that a fair statement?
Right. I mean, if we just look at the macroeconomy, all of the income growth on an aggregate level is going to the top 10%. So if you compare the income of everyone in the bottom 90%, in 1979 versus 2012, you put it all into one big pot. That pot of money of all the income of the bottom 90% actually got smaller between 1979 and 2012. So as we all work hard at our jobs, everyone works hard at their jobs, whether you're a CEO or you work in the cafeteria, the wealth that we're producing all the increases in wealth are going to people at the top. So it's only those are the only people who can afford to pay more into Social Security. So it makes sense then to reform the system so that where all the income growth is going is where you're also increasing revenues.
Okay, so there are a couple, I think they're all great points. There are a couple counter arguments. Let me first give you one I've heard from the left, okay? And it's not really a counter. It's just another way of looking at it, that in fact the payroll tax contributions that people make, working people, are so small relative to their income that, you know, the National Academy of Social Insurance did a survey on expanding Medicare. And people would, in fact, before we even get to the super wealthy, people would, in fact, be willing to pay a little more out of that. It would just be dollars a month, I think, wouldn't it, in order to at least help shore up the program?
Well, sure, and you know, and I am not opposed to increasing payroll tax rate from 6.2 to 7.2%, for example, if you did it gradually. I'm not opposed to that, but I think from an equity standpoint, it makes more sense to do what I'm proposing in this paper, which is to increase the revenues from the areas of the economy where income is growing. Because those are the people, you know, I don't want to have a socialist economy with 5-year plans and so forth. I prefer to have a certain.
See, that's where we differ. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Right, so if we decide to have a free market economy that is a free-for-all where income can go wherever it goes, and obviously there's limits to that, but if that's the kind of economy we want, then on the back end we have to figure out how to structure our social policy and our social insurance programs to make sure that we get enough revenue into Social Security that it also functions well. And I think just scrapping the cap is a great efficient way to do that.
Well, I do too. I also think it's a very simple idea. I'm certainly, you know, I'm not opposed to it at all. I do think it's an important, but I also, you know, and I also, by the way, I couldn't do more to agree with your argument about fairness, because what we have is a situation where the very economy that's allowed people to get so extreme in wealth at the various high end of the curve is also the economy that's not sharing productivity gains with working people. So this is in effect another way, you know, we've had after 30 years of productivity and wages tracking together, the productivity has now been going to the very wealthy, those wealth increases. So it's a very good way to kind of offset. So I think that makes a lot of sense in the time, a couple minutes we have left, I guess, from our friends on the right, as they say.
Right.
We're talking with Benjamin Veghte, the research director of Social Security Works, about scrapping the cap and increasing Social Security. Now, our friends on the right say that we can't afford this because they say we just tax and spend too much. And where's the money going to come from? So what's the simple answer when someone at your next family dinner says that?
Right. I mean, first of all, there have been several studies done in recent years, one from Standard & Poor's, one from the World Bank, which showed that reducing inequality through public policy actually increases economic growth, increases the size of the economic pie. So in a way, we can't afford not to reduce inequality. But that's on a macro level. But on an individual level, you know, if my income is going up every year and my neighbor's income is not going up every year, I can certainly afford to contribute 6.2% of that to social insurance programs. You know, I'm still keeping the other 90, you know, whatever. I mean, obviously there are other income taxes and so forth, but I'm still much better off every year than someone whose income is stagnating or declining. So I think both at an individual and on a national level, we can afford to do this.
Okay, well, and then how would we make that happen? In other words, politically, who have we got supporting this right now? I know Senator Bernie Sanders was there for the press announcement about that this week, about this idea and about your report. Anybody else signing on?
Well, there are closet supporters of these kinds of ideas in Congress, but it hasn't been on the congressional agenda to the point where it's been considered, or where there's been a collection of names taken, to see who would support this or not. So this report is aimed more at shifting the political, the Overton window, or the shifting the way we look at these issues, so that we can start to reframe the debate about Social Security in terms of, for example, right now with the expected shortfall of disability insurance trust fund, Republicans are talking a lot about having to cut benefits. It's shifting the debate to say, look, if you look at the way the economy is developing with rising inequality, what we really need to do is raise revenues in the system, not cut benefits. So it's to shift the debate towards revenues.
Well, okay, and I think that's a great thing to do, and I also think it happens to be a very good idea and a good solution to the problem. So thanks for writing a great report. Benjamin Veghte, Research Director for Social Security Works. People can find it at socialsecurityworks.org. And thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you, Richard.
We will be right back after this. I'm Richard, RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.